all riled up, him and that girl?
I don't know. But I'll tell you something, Doc. You better not mess around with Nades there.
Ken Curtis spent 11 years making America laugh as Fessus. But off camera, too. Women changed his life in the worst ways. One was his ex-wife, whose family accused him of something he could never escape. The other was a co-star he refused to work with again in 1987. Because of a pay dispute. He demanded more money than her and walked away from the show that made him famous. The truth about both conflicts was buried for decades. But the stories finally came out after he died in 1991. Ken Curtis was born on July 2, 1916 in Lamar, Colorado. His real name was Curtis Wayne Gates, and he was the youngest of 3 brothers. He actually had a twin brother named Chester, but that part was mostly hidden from the public for years. His father, Dan Gates, wasn't just a farmer. He ran for sheriff and won in 1926. That changed everything. The whole family moved into an apartment right above the Bent County Jail. From the age of 10 to 15, young Curtis lived with prisoners right under his feet. His mother, Nellie, didn't just cook for the family. She cooked for the entire jail. Every day, Curtis ate dinner knowing men in cells were eating the same thing. One of them, a man named Cedar Jack, always stood out. Jack had a strange voice and wild stories. And years later, that voice would come back as the voice of Festus Haggen. One day, 2 prisoners escaped. They broke the window, slid down a drain pipe, and landed in the family's chicken pen. Curtis's dog, Ted, chased them. But Nellie didn't know what was happening. She thought Ted was attacking the chickens, so she called him off. The 2 men got away. It was the only escape during Dan's time as sheriff. Everyone laughed about it later, but it left a mark on Curtis. It taught him how fast control can disappear. That moment stuck with him just like the music did. Their house was always full of music. Dan played fiddle. Nellie played the pump organ. Curtis's brothers played banjo and sang. Curtis picked up the guitar when he was stuck in bed with pneumonia at age 8. It was 1924. One of the coldest winters Colorado had seen. There were no antibiotics, no real hospitals nearby. He nearly died. But as he recovered, he sat in bed learning chords. That's how he started playing for real. Music helped him get through the illness, and it never left him after that. 2 years later, in 1926, the family moved to Los Anamas when Dan took the sheriff job. And that's where Curtis really started building the skills that would shape his whole life. By the time he was in high school, Curtis had become a local football star. He was tall, 6'1", and weighed about 185 pounds. He played quarterback and looked like someone headed for a pro career. But secretly, after practice, he was writing folk songs about cowboys and sheriffs and outlaws. His teammates didn't know. He was also in the school band playing clarinet. He did it all. In his senior year, he even helped launch a festival called Santa Fe Trail Days, which still exists today. In 1935, when he graduated, everyone thought he'd play football, or maybe go into law like his dad. Instead, he shocked everyone by using all the money he had, $200 saved from ranch work, to enroll at Colorado College. He said he wanted to study medicine, but really music had already taken hold. Back in 1930, when the Great Depression hit, Curtis was just 14. His dad's salary as sheriff was only $75 a month. That wasn't enough. Not even close. Nellie kept cooking for prisoners, and the boys did everything they could to help. Curtis worked on ranches, mending fences, hauling hay, and driving cattle. At 16, he was already carrying adult weight on his shoulders. He couldn't even afford proper football gear. He had to borrow pads that didn't fit. Still, he kept going, working 22, 30 hours a week, studying, practicing music, and playing football. Poverty became part of him. It never left. That struggle gave him a kind of grounded strength, and people in Hollywood noticed it later. In 1935, when he spent that $200 on college, his family didn't understand. But that was the moment he began climbing out of the hard life he was born into. There was something else. Something darker. In 1929, when Curtis was 13, he saw his father in a real shootout. It happened on Main Street. Dan had spotted cattle rustlers, 3 of them, and confronted them. Curtis was walking home from school when the guns went off. He hid behind a barrel while his father fired at the thieves. 1 was shot and caught. 2 escaped. A bullet shattered the window just a few feet from where Curtis crouched. That moment stayed with him for the rest of his life. He said he had nightmares for months. After that, he wasn't sure if he ever wanted to be a lawman like his dad. But that memory, along with all those years above the jail, gave him something no acting school could ever teach. When he later played lawmen in westerns, you could feel it. It was real. By 1938, when Curtis was 22, he dropped his medical studies and moved to Los Angeles. He wanted to sing. That same year, he began performing at shows, and within a few years, he got his big break. In 1941, the famous band leader Tommy Dorsey needed a new vocalist. Frank Sinatra had just left. Curtis stepped in. Dorsey even told him to change his name. That's how Curtis Gates became Ken Curtis. He earned $125 a week, good money back then, and sang in New York venues that were the heart of American music. After Sinatra came back, Curtis joined the Sheffields band. But it wasn't just about the money. He learned how to perform on big stages, how to handle pressure, how to lead a band with just his voice. Then came the war. In 1943, he enlisted in the U.S. Army and served in Italy. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a hero. He earned the Bronze Star for bravery. But even in war, he sang for the troops, lifting spirits in dark times. That experience changed him. After he came home in 1945, he was tougher, wiser, and ready for more. He went back to radio. And one night he sang Tumbleweeds. A Columbia Pictures executive heard it and gave him a movie deal. Just like that, Ken Curtis became a singing cowboy in Western films. His first movie, Rhythm Roundup, came out on September 7, 1945. It made $125,000 in 1 month. But behind the scenes, Curtis broke his arm doing his own stunts. The studio was furious, but he wouldn't use a double. He believed in doing things himself, no matter the risk. In 1941, Ken Curtis was just a young man from Colorado when he got a call that would change his life. His real name was Curtis Wayne Gates, but when Tommy Dorsey brought him into his famous orchestra as a backup for Frank Sinatra, he told him to change it. From that moment on, he became Ken Curtis. On September 26, 1941, he recorded a song called Love Sends a Little Gift of Roses with the Pied Pipers and Joe Stafford. But even though he was singing with one of the best bands in America, he wasn't there to stay. He was just a backup plan in case Sinatra left. And when Sinatra did leave on September 3, 1942 during a big New York performance, it wasn't Curtis who stepped up. It was Dick H.S. Still, that short time with Dorsey's orchestra opened doors. By 1945, Curtis made the jump to Hollywood. It all started with a simple radio performance where he sang Tumbling Tumbleweeds. Johnny Mercer heard him, and that one song got him a contract at Columbia Pictures. His first film, Rhythm Roundup, came out on September 7, 1945. Just 20 days later, Song of the Prairie followed. Between 1945 and 1946, he starred in 8 musical westerns. Studios liked him so much they kept naming his characters Kurt. He later joked that he'd be in a gunfight and just stopped to sing. But even while acting, music stayed close to him. In 1948, he became a singer and host at WWVA Jamboree in West Virginia. It was one of the biggest country radio shows at the time, second only to the Grand Ole Opry. This show reached people far beyond the cowboy crowd. That's when he realized something. His voice wasn't just for singing in movies. It touched real people. The next year in 1949, he joined the Sons of the Pioneers. Their lead singer, Tim Spencer, had voice issues and left. Curtis took over, and his very first lead song with them was Room Full of Roses. That song reached number 10 on the country charts and 26 on the pop charts. Some people say it happened in 1954, but it was actually 1949. He also sang hits like Ghost Riders in the Sky and performed at places like Carnegie Hall. He stayed with the group until 1952, then came back from 1955 to 1957. Even during this time, he showed up on TV. In the late 1950s, he guest starred on Have Gun Will Travel. In one 1960 episode, he sang a song so beautifully it surprised everyone who only saw him as an actor. He was actually on the show 5 times, and the producers made sure to add singing scenes just for him. These appearances helped people remember him not just as an actor, but still as a singer, too. Then, in 1959, while filming a low-budget horror movie called The Killer Shrews, something awful happened. They used dogs in costume to act like giant shrews. One of them attacked him during a night shoot in the Louisiana Bayou. It tore into his left arm and shoulder. He needed 20 stitches and had nerve damage that made it hard to play guitar. Since he was also the film's producer, he had to pay for everything, even his own hospital bills. The whole thing shut production down for 2 weeks and cost an extra $15,000. In 1960, he joined the cast of The Alamo, a huge $12 million film directed by John Wayne. Curtis shocked everyone by improvising lines in his natural Colorado accent. Wayne was known for hating unscripted changes, but this time he loved it. He even said it was the most authentic frontier talk I've heard in pictures, and rewrote parts of the film to include more of Curtis's style. Curtis didn't use a stunt double either. He fought in real hand-to-hand scenes in 110 degrees Texas heat for 3 straight days. Then something quiet but serious happened. Back in 1944 during the war, Curtis had taken an artillery blast in Italy. It left his throat damaged. In 1963, while filming Gunsmoke, he started bleeding from his throat. Doctors found massive scar tissue and told him if they didn't operate, he could lose his voice forever. The surgery took 4 hours and had a 40% chance of failure. He didn't tell anyone at CBS, afraid they'd fire him. For 3 months, he couldn't speak and had to write on paper to communicate. When he healed, his voice was deeper and raspier. That became part of Festus. His start on Gunsmoke wasn't simple either. He first appeared on December 8, 1962, in an episode called Us Haggens. He had already played other small roles before, but this time he pitched the idea of a hillbilly character named Festus. Even though he was from Colorado and had no southern background, he created the accent from scratch based on a real man called Cedar Jack. This man used to get drunk and land in his father's jail back in Los Angeles. Curtis copied his walk, his talk, and his habits. He said Festus was really a mix of people he'd known growing up. The character of Festus officially launched in the 1964 episode Once a Haggen. During the mid-60s, over 30 million people tuned in each week.